I said I'd stop doing that. I said I'd stop doing it, but I'm addicted. I'm addicted to looking at this screwdriver and just making a whoo face. What does that say? Even though there's quite literally nothing to read on it. It just is what Matt Smith does. And I don't think Peter Capaldi does it. So I'm doing it for the wrong era. But today we're talking about Mummy on the Orient Express, which I think is a brilliant episode. This series is just full of 10 out of 10s and like 5 to 2 out of 10s. Like, it's a really mixed bag. But I love this episode. The premise, the Doctor and Clara are on one last adventure after the effects of Kill the Moon, and they come to the Orient Express, but it's an Orient Express in space, and there's a mummy that appears, and when you see the mummy, you've got 66 seconds to live, but only one person can see the mummy at a time. I love this episode. Let's talk about it. Something I love about this episode, and it's something that the show hasn't done for a while, and I wouldn't be mad if the show did this going forward, is that, well, this series as a whole doesn't have an overarching serialization feeling like, for example, Series 6 does. With Series 6, you've got episodes like The Opener, and then A Good Man Goes to War, even The Flesh two-parter plays a big part in it, and then you've got Let's Go Hitler, then you've got a few, like, filler episodes from the overarching story, and then you've got the finale, and it all ties together and it feels quite serialized. But with this, it's very much RTD1 in the sense of you just get a little hint of Missy every episode, and you know she's coming at the end of the series. You're like, who's that? Where is she? What's this about? But the overarching serialization of this series is within the characters' relationships. The Doctor and Clara don't just start every episode being best pals, going on the latest adventure. They actually have beef in the last episode. They have an argument. Clara's very, very angry at him. And in this episode, it carries over. It doesn't just reset. Episodes are still self-contained, but it doesn't reset. The emotions of the characters carry over. And that's really clever. And I feel like Doctor Who should do that going forward, rather than just like, who's this random old pensioner that we've gathered again? No offence to Anita Dobson or Susan Twist. I think you were both great, but I don't know, I feel like this would be more interesting. A lot of people take issue with the start of this episode and the fact that what I've just said, the Doctor and Clara had a big argument, and now they're back on another adventure, but I quite like it. Because it's obvious to Clara that this isn't the last time they're going to be travelling together. I think she's lying to herself, and I think the Doctor knows that too. So it's not a sense of, this guy really upset me, I'm going to just go on a date with him one last time. It's more that she knows the Doctor, she had time to think about it. It was weeks and weeks, she said, between last episode and this one. She's had time to digest it, and she knows that the Doctor didn't really mean any harm. He could have gone about it a different way, but she knows the Doctor didn't intentionally harm her. And she knows the Doctor's willing to accept critique and grow from it. So she knows that in the future he probably won't leave us stranded on the moon again. So she's willing to come back, and I think she's calling it one last time in case the Doctor hasn't changed. She then has an excuse to bow out. But I think going into this, she knows this isn't the last adventure the Doctor and her are going on. I believe that to be true. I think of what Danny Pink said last episode with the whole, like, you know, you're never done with someone when you're still angry. She's taken time to calm down, and she's acknowledged that she wants to keep travelling with him, I think. I think that's what this whole thing is. No political undertone messaging, just this is what I believe she's doing. A scene I liked, it was actually near the beginning. It's where the Doctor is called a liar by Miss Pitt. She's like, that man's a liar. And I love how cool he keeps himself. If anyone gets called a liar, being called a liar is one of the things that makes people blow. If I get called a liar, immediately I lose my cool. I lose my cool, and I get a bit triggered. And I think we all do. That's like the main thing that triggers people, where we'd all be like, I'm not a liar, this is the proof, and the proof is there, and I've got a time machine, blah, blah, blah. But the Doctor just accepts it, and he keeps quiet, and he keeps cool, and he collected to himself, and that's a good characteristic of this Doctor. Because I think someone like David Tennant, no offence, has got a big ego, and would probably be like, no, look, I'm John Smith, I've got a TARDIS back there, and it's like, not that he talks like that, but I think this is a good characteristic of this Doctor, is he just is cool. He's chill, he's collected, he knows that he's right, he knows that he's not a liar, and that's all that matters. The dialogue this episode is pretty much perfect. There's one little iffy bit, which is where Miss Pitt's talking about how she feels like she's responsible for her grandmother's death, and it seemed a little bit like, I'm just going to dump this for some reason, but I can look past that because the rest of the episode, every conversation, the Doctor talking to the philosopher about the foretold, the Doctor talking to the captain, the Doctor talking to Gus, the Doctor talking to Clara, Clara talking to Miss Pitt. It's not just the Doctor's dialogue that's great, although that opening scene is brilliant where he's talking about planets and the Doctor's and Clara's there like, I hated you, and he's like, I don't care, let me talk about planets. And it's so good, man. I love Capaldi as the Doctor so much, and Jamie Matheson, you wrote some great episodes here. And I think Gus, as an overall point, Gus is he's something that was planted there by Jamie, I think, just in case Jamie got the showrunner role. A bit like how in the next series with Before the Flood, Toby Whithouse puts a thing in there about the Minister of War. We don't know what the Minister of War is, but Toby probably had an idea in his head, and just in case when Stephen left he got the showrunner gig, why not sprinkle something in there? Gus doesn't ever need to be picked up on again, but if Jamie Matheson got the showrunner job and wanted to pick up on Gus again, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? So, yeah, Jamie Matheson's he's great with dialogue in this episode, it's brilliant. And I like how halfway through the episode, literally at the exact halfway point, I remember looking and thinking, God, I feel like I've not been watching this long, and the train's already been transformed into the room. And I looked, and it was exactly at halfway through. This episode becomes an escape room. It stops becoming a sort of period piece with a creepy monster, and is, right, this is facts, this is a weird bit of tech, figure it out. And the whole episode is just the Doctor brainstorming different ideas. How does this happen? How does it know who to pick? Why 66 seconds? What is it? And that's really cool. I mean, I've done lots of escape rooms myself, and I'm rubbish at them, so it's good to see an expert crack one. I like the reality of the guy dying, the philosopher who knows a lot about the foretold, because at the start the Doctor's like, describe it, although it felt like it was a weird jarring cut between that. I feel like there was a bit more of a build up to the Doctor being like, right, describe what you see, but it just sort of goes from a normal conversation to the lights flicker to start the clock, and then the guy starts describing it. So that was a bit of a jarring cut. It was a bit like, what's going on there? But that aside, that scene's perfect when the philosopher's like, okay, it's a 1.8 meters tall, it's a bit ragged, old bandages, it's a bit, he's a wounded thing underneath it. It looks like just a man, he's walking towards me like that. And the Doctor then drops that he's going to die. And at that point, the philosopher completely switches up, and he starts being like, okay, I know the foretold, I know that there's a trigger word that'll stop it. So he just starts saying random words, random things. You can have my fortunes, I confess my sins, I forgive you, stuff like that, to try and stop the foretold, to bargain for his life. And that's so real. There's so many films or other series where that person would have just kept spewing exposition about the foretold to the characters. But this one doesn't, because in real life, if you know you've got 20 seconds to live and there's a potential word or phrase that could keep you alive, you'd say it, wouldn't you? You'd just spew a random load of nonsense in the hope that it might keep you living, but it didn't for this guy. That's peak. And I like the Doctor causing death. Is that bad to say? This would never happen in a David Tennant story. I mean, this next point is what I'm talking about, not the last one, but this one, where the Doctor's on the phone to Clara. He's like, Clara, you need to bring your friend to me, Clara. And Gus keeps coming on the thing, and he's like, you need to hang up the phone call and continue with your work. And Gus says it about 10 times, and then we see the kitchen get ejected. The kitchen staff have been ejected out of the train and are now just dead. Dead corpses just floating in space. That is grim, but I love it. And it's something that would never happen in a David Tennant story. You could never have the Doctor be responsible for death. Grim death like this. Peter Capaldi, he masters it. And that's what I love about Peter Capaldi, is that no other Doctor could pull this characterisation of 12 off. In my opinion. As in no other previous Doctor actor could do this. That's why I love him. I do love the overall concept of just, there's something there that only one person can see. Nobody else can see this thing. And that to me is like, ooh, I like it. It's new, it's different. And it's something that would play on your mind a lot, because what do you mean no one else can see this thing that I can see? And the explanation for it's cool as well. The fact that it, before it kills you, it needs to phase you out, to drain you, so only you can see it. That's really clever. I do think that it would be cool. I don't know, it's a tricky one. would it be cooler if we didn't see the mummy until the doctor did? Or until everyone did at the end? Because... But then it probably wouldn't, because you need the monster there, don't you? You need the threat there. You need to be able to see it. But maybe like an added DVD extra is like the Mummy on the Orient Express cut without the mummy in it until the very end. That would have been cool, because it would have kept you thinking, like, oh, what's this going to be? Blah, 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 blah. But then, but I think that'd be cool. It'd be cool if this was like the finale, and this was part 1 of like 3. And we don't see the mummy until the very end. And then when the doctor sees the mummy, he realises, oh, this is like a Mondasian Cyberman or something. And then the Cybermen take over in the final 2 parts or final part. That would have been a cool thing, but that didn't happen. Now, pretty much the whole of this review so far has just been me like saying this is a really good episode. I have 2 plot holes here. Number 1, Miss Pitt and Clara. They're trapped in a room, right? That's the whole reason they're in that room. The whole episode is because they're trapped inside. The doctor cannot get them out. They're trapped inside. Until he picks up the phone and goes, hey, you need to come to me now, and then the doors just magically open. And okay, maybe Gus was like, I want to know what the foretold is, I'll let them come out, door open. But then why did Gus lock them in there in the first place? What was in there that was so weird? But if Gus didn't want to know what was in there, I didn't want to know what the foretold was, why would he... Right, Gus... Was Gus the creator of this to test people, or was Gus interested in what the foretold was and set out smart people to do it for him? Because either way, it doesn't work. If Gus set up this whole thing, he would not let Clara and Miss Pitt out of that room. He wouldn't let them out. Why would you let them out? If he wants them to be clever and figure it out, why would he let them out of that locked room? But let's say, for example, Gus is not the creator and he's interested in the foretold and he wants to know what the foretold is. He would let them out because the doctor's got a plan. But the doctor later says, I've got it quoted here, that he couldn't reveal that he planned on saving Miss Pitt in case Gus stopped him. But if this would help prove what the foretold is, why would Gus stop them? So there's always a twist. There's always an angle to look at it where, like, well, if this is what Gus wants, then this makes no sense. But if this is what Gus wants, then this makes no sense. So it's a bit weird. I suppose you can sort of play it off on the fact we don't really know what Gus is and we never find out. But I like the doctor saving everyone at the end, and I like the fact the oxygen goes a bit rushed, but I can put up with that. I don't mind. I don't mind a bit of fast paced here and there. So yeah, why did right? And this is the last thing I'll say on this episode. Why did Clara lie to Danny Pink at the end? He's like, "Are you going to still travel with the doctor?" And she knows she will, but she says no. Why would you say no? Just say, yeah, we're travelling. Or say, oh, it's a bit complex, Danny, I'll explain to you later on. I'll come and see you and I'll explain. She doesn't say any of that. She just goes, no, I'm not travelling with him anymore. Why? We spent the whole first half of this series was Clara being just over the top, overstimulated, because she's lying to Danny and she's lying to the doctor, and there's 2 lives and the 3rd life of work, and it's all trying to blend together and it doesn't work. Why would you optionally go back to that? Just say, Danny, I've made up my mind, I want to keep travelling with him, you were right. He'd smile and be like, okay, just don't get into trouble, and he'll go to bed, and that's it. But she has to lie to him for some reason. I don't know. Mummy on the Orient Express. Mummy on the Orient Express, but I keep saying like, Mummy on the Orient Express. Mummy on the Orient Express. A great episode of Doctor Who. In my opinion, I would call this episode another 5 out of 5. But a few plot holes here and there, I can look past it because the concept, the design, the execution, and the cleverness is on point. 5 out of 5 for me, Mummy on the Orient Express. What do you think about it? Leave your ratings and your reviews in the comments down below. I'm interested in reading them all. If you want to help me out and grow this channel, please leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell on, and come back whenever I upload. It's quite frequently at the minute. We post one of these reviews to Series 8 and probably Series 9 and 10 every single Friday, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you want to leave, there's a button near the comments that says hype. If you could hype the video, that would mean the absolute world. Pushes my video out to loads more people. And if you want to shout out or you want to help me out monetary wise, you can become a channel member, or you can donate with the super thanks thing in the comments. And either of those will get you a shout out in the next video. And if you're a member, you get access to member only videos. That's why it's a little bit more expensive. But obviously you don't have to do any of that. You could just literally click off this video now and never come back ever again. You can do what you want. You got free will. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I've been Sam, and I'll see you later. Ta-ra!